Are you there?
Yep.
Okay,
Yes,
there you are.
I,
Okay,
I am. Okay, we
okay.
ready?
Yes, we're
All
ready.
right. We're going to read the next chapter after Michael Neal's chapter. This one's called by Marlene Fuchs, whom I've met. She lives in the United Kingdom. Postpar Postpartum Depression. September 2022, 2002, sorry. The day my first child was born. Bright blue skies after days of gray clouds. A completely new world seemed to have opened up. Just perfect. My daughter, healthy and beautiful beyond words. A few hours after her birth, I was in the bedroom. Wait a minute, my things. Bedroom with her. She was sleeping peacefully in her crib. I stood up and went to look at her. What happened then took me off guard. As soon as I saw her, an unknown feeling filled my chest, welled up inside me, up in my throat, and tears started flowing down my cheeks. I couldn't help but cry. After a moment, my mind started to race. What was this? Why was I crying? I must be sad. I shouldn't be sad. Everything was perfect. This child was perfect. This day, this life, my husband, everything is perfect. I tried to swallow it. Maybe that's just the hormones. Didn't they talk about it in the birth preparation class? But wasn't it too early? At some point, I've got to get my bearings back. Until the next time I looked at her in a quiet moment, and the same feeling came up again. With it, the tears. Embarrassing. What was wrong with me? Whenever it happened and someone else was with me in the room, including my then husband, I turned away to hide what clearly wasn't normal. I didn't want them to discover something was wrong with me. I would get over it. I must. This is my child. I was responsible for her well-being. I had to get my feelings under control again. I wasn't sad, couldn't be sad. This adorable human being was completely dependent on me. I had to pull myself together. I had to be careful. I wanted to do it right. I wanted to be reliable, to be strong. And at the same time, I felt fragile and like any newly born and like newly born myself. Something in me started to worry. The days and weeks that followed were in many aspects completely different than what I would have said I had expected. In truth, I didn't know what I expected, but the tiredness after months of not sleeping well, the isolation from being most of the time alone with my baby. I'm going to unmute myself. The days and the weeks that followed were in many aspects completely different than what I would have said I had expected. In truth, I didn't know what I expected, but the tiredness after months of not sleeping well, the isolation from being most of the time alone with my baby, and the pressure I put on myself to function the way I functioned before her birth took a toll. I was worried much more now, as I obviously wasn't able to get it all done easily, to be up early and ready to do all the things swiftly as I always did it. For so many ordinary things, I needed so much more time. I loved my daughter, loved to be with her, and at the same time felt inadequate as a mother. I couldn't fulfill the tasks as I wanted them, and surely everyone was rightly expecting me to do. When my baby was around 3 months old, I felt so exhausted and drained, I didn't know how to carry on. The parent counselor I went to every week stated that I must be suffering from some postpartum depression and suggested I go to a mother-child clinic specialized for women in this situation and to stay there for a few weeks. I was scared. No way I would do that. How would that help? I had to figure this out in real life at home. Besides this, everyone would then know I wasn't able to do the simplest thing in the world, having one child and doing housework without getting depressed. Somehow I pushed through. 3 years later, after a strenuous second pregnancy, the early loss of one twin, and birth of my second daughter, I broke down physically and emotionally. My worries felt overwhelming. I was in constant fear of not being enough as a mother, of maybe not seeing when my children needed my help, of not giving them enough, or even being the reason for them to be unhappy. I had to constantly fight against bad feelings, and I had to make sure my daughters were okay. Every sign of sadness or frustration had to be addressed and resolved. No one believed I was an insufficient mother, except myself. Pass. Are you there, Elaine?
Hang on, sorry.
Okay.
The following years of psychotherapy didn't change it. We dug deep into what went wrong in my childhood and how this probably was affecting my parenting and the relationship between me and my children. My worrying mind wasn't soothed. After 6 years, I stopped the therapy, not the worrying. It took me almost 18 years from the day my first child was born until it all finally fell away.
Wow.
All the worry, all the fear, all the expectation of motherhood and nagging doubt dropped when I listened to one of Dr. Bill Pettit's recordings. What I heard was worrying is nothing more than thinking about what bad stuff could happen and thinking about how this could be prevented. It all happened inside my head. Every moment I was thinking about what could go wrong. I was actually not with my girls. I was occupied with thoughts about them and about me. Worrying is not an attribute of being a good mother. Worrying is optional. Everything that is needed besides food, shelter, and attention and care is love, unconditional love. The moment I heard this, I knew it was true. I laughed. The heaviness I had carried around for so long, gone in an instant. I saw clearly. I always loved my children, and they loved me. Nothing was wrong, either with me nor with my children. I just thought something was wrong or could go wrong. And I realized when I cried, standing at my daughter's crib, the feelings that filled my chest welled up inside me, up my throat, and the tears that started to flow down my cheeks. It was my body telling me how deeply moved I was. I felt a love and a connection I never felt before. All it was, tears of pure joy.
Wow.
Yeah,
Cool. I'm sorry, like my finger slipped on the screen. That's pretty
no
amazing
worries.
how things just dropped like that. And I love that description of worry.
Yeah, yeah, that was really cool.
How did it go? Let's see.
So I just thought something was wrong or could go wrong. Wait a second, the heaviness I carried.
Don't,
Worrying is not an attribute of being a good mother. Worrying is optional. Everything that is needed besides food, shelter, attention, and care is love, unconditional love.
yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Every moment I was thinking about what could go wrong, I was actually not with my girls. I was occupied with thoughts about them and about me, but she wasn't in her body and present with the girls in that moment.
Yeah.
And she doesn't even say, but I bet if she's like most of us, everything she ever worried about never actually materialized.
Yes. Exactly.
Yeah.
Yes.
So I'm just curious, is Lori still on the phone? We can't tell. We don't know.
We don't
Should,
know.
should we
I don't
skip?
know if we should skip it. Yeah.
Yeah, let's skip it. All right, hold on.
Okay. Okay. Give me a second. All right. Suicidal ideation. Okay. So suicidal ideation, Judy Nakis, New Zealand. I stumbled across the principles in February 2016. I had suffered from depression, anxiety, and suicidal ideation for decades. I was chronically shy as a kid and pushed myself to tolerate social situations as long as I could. And then I would have to leave. I struggled to make friends and had very few. I'm not sure what age I started fantasizing about suicide, but it was always my go-to place. I remember being in the library at college and thinking about jumping out the window. I was first diagnosed in my 20s. I went to the doctor about severe headaches all the time and came away with a script for antidepressants. I spent the next 3 decades on various medications: amitriptyline, Prozac, citalopram, venlafaxine was the most helpful. Though at one time I found myself taking things, counseling, psychologists, CBT, NLP, EFT,
No, no, no,
timeline
no.
therapy.
Can I
Oh,
interrupt you? Can I
yes,
interrupt you?
ma'am.
It says, though at one time I found myself taking 7 times the dose
Oh,
that had
sorry. Yep.
initially seemed helpful.
Yes. Okay. I found myself taking 7 times the dose that had initially seemed helpful. Over the years, I tried numerous things: counseling, psychologists, CBT, NLP, EFT, timeline therapy, art therapy. I thought I tried everything. I had a whole library of self-help books and programs. Some of it seemed to help, but nothing seemed to last. In hindsight, I see now that I had an incredible insight during art therapy. I told the teacher that I don't get scared by thoughts I have when I'm dreaming or in my nightmares. I wonder if the thoughts I have in the daytime are no more important. But it looked too good to be true, and so I couldn't believe it. I was still having major depressive episodes. It scared me. I lost hope that it would ever be different. It looked like the only way to end my suffering was to end my life. Came close. I had a plan. I knew exactly what I would do and had everything I needed. That morning, I drove the kids to school 2 kilometers away. My son and daughter were 9 and 6 at the time. When I returned home, I pulled on my overalls and gumboots and fed the horses. Chores done, I furiously debated if I should go ahead with my plan. I sobbed in anguish, desperate to end the pain, desperate to feel better, desperate to decide what to do. I truly believed that my husband and my children would be better off without me. I was a terrible wife, a terrible mother, a terrible human. It suddenly occurred to me that if I went ahead with my plan, I wouldn't be there to pick the kids up after school. They would have to walk home alone, and they would find me dead. I couldn't do that to them. It was all kind of in slow motion, and I realized that I loved them so much. That's why I was thinking of it. The next thought was, I don't want them to ever think I didn't love them enough to stick around. Followed by, no matter how bad it is, suicide is off the table, which kept me safe but miserable for the next 10 years. In 2015,
Okay.
I decided to come off the medication because it wasn't doing me any good. My depression was so bad, and I was really scared about what would happen when they couldn't increase it anymore. I'd been on it for the past part of 30 years and had been told by doctors that I had a chemical imbalance and would need to be on it for the rest of my life. I was so angry about it all. I had terrible side effects, like weight gain and the loss of my sex drive. And when I changed doctors, the new doctor told me the drugs were really dangerous and I should only have been on it for a short time. I knew enough to be super careful and go really slow. I had a lot of physical problems with withdrawal, and to this day, I still get occasional brain zaps. In February 2016, I hit rock bottom. I thought I had good reasons for my current depression. In the previous year, my mom had passed away suddenly after a short battle with cancer. My dad had been diagnosed with cancer. Then my daughter Melissa had a head injury after a fall while show jumping. I now had an extra 4 hours of work a day looking after the horses. Friends and family were saying she should never ride again. And she was saying, if I can't ride, life's not worth living. She was 17 at the time, and I felt like I couldn't let her out of my sight. We knew another rider who had hanged herself a year earlier, and I was terrified Melissa might do something stupid. If I didn't know where she was, I'd imagine myself finding her hanging in the barn. My anxiety went through the roof. I felt nauseous 24/7 and had to make myself eat. A few months later, when I was finally starting to feel better, something else slammed me. I felt like I'd been double stabbed in the back by some friends. All I thought about for weeks was wanting to die. Eventually, I found myself Googling at 3 a.m. how to commit suicide so no one knows. I was desperate and reasoned that if no one knew it was suicide, it would be okay. After several hours, I didn't find anything I thought would work. I went back to bed, totally exhausted. Later that day, I was making myself work in the garden, which I now see as my wisdom. As hard as it was to get started, I would feel better as I worked and find it equally hard to stop. It was a habit to listen to recordings on YouTube. More wisdom if I listened to someone else. I didn't have to listen to me. In those days, I couldn't hear quiet. Oh, I couldn't bear quiet. When it finished, the autoplay selected a video from Three Principles teacher Michael Neal. I didn't want to hear it. He was interviewing people, and I was sure he was just trying to sell something. I was very skeptical, but my hands were too dirty to switch it off. I was stuck listening. As I listened to people's stories and how life had changed for them, I heard enough to get curious. What was this thing called? The Three Principles that I'd never heard of? A Google search that evening paid off. I read someone's blog, and it just made sense. I didn't make much of it at the time, but when I woke up the next morning, the anxiety was gone. It felt amazing. I had so much more energy and wanted to do things instead of making myself do them. Occasionally, I felt a little anxious, but I would think you must have some anxious thinking and just ignored the feeling and got on with my life. The difference was profound. Life suddenly made sense. I realized I had it all backwards, listening to thought storms and completely letting go of more helpful thoughts. The depression, suicidal thinking was stickier, though I quickly saw that the more comfortable I was about being uncomfortable, the quicker it passed. I was mucking out the padlocks one day, and I had this thought that my suicidal thoughts were just me having a temper tantrum when life gets tough or things aren't going the way I'd like them to. I saw that it gave me the illusion of being in control because I could choose it. I felt so much freedom after that. Now, 61 years old, I have more grace with the ups and downs of life that I could even have imagined previously. There's a much bigger range of feelings now, so much more laughter and lightness at myself and life. My capacity to be resilient and know what to do sometimes astounds me when there are some horrible situations, and there have been. My niece's 16-year-old son was murdered in 2015, and we are going through the court case right now, and I'm okay. It's tough at times, but there's also love and connection beyond what I could have ever dreamed of. I'm medication free, and I'm just so grateful that I came across the principles. And I want to share my story because if it helps one person, it's worth it. Wow.
I've been talking away, chatting with you. Anyway, if you haven't met Judy Neckheis on any webinars, she's out there. She's amazing. And I think it was a Michael Neal blog that she came across in the middle of the night. Yeah.
Yeah.
I didn't realize I was on mute. Um,
No problem.
yeah.
Yeah.
Wow. That's really powerful. Well, Lori's
It
not
is.
back yet. Lori's
No,
not,
she's not.
no. Do you think we should not have this one be a full one because she's missing out?
Yeah. I'm not sure. What do you think she'd prefer?
Well, yeah, I think that, we'll set this one out for 2 stories on a video. That's what I think. And allow her the time to, I mean, she must be so distracted and worried about trying to get
Yeah.
that fixed. So,
Yeah.
yeah. Okay. And
Okay.
we'll send her, I'll send her an email and CC you. How's that?
Sounds good. All right. Have a good day. I think you're froze too.